They
Those
played
Georgia they
Georgia
played
last year.
last year, right? I mean, they played them pretty tough, if I'm not mistaken, at least for a
Oh, they played them
while.
really tough.
Yeah, yeah.
They should
So
have won if the game would not have been mismanaged in regards to the clock at the end of the game. They would have won the game.
yeah,
They could have run out the clock with a 21-19 lead, and then they handed it over to Georgia, who kicked the game-winning field goal to make it 22-21, and then they had a crazy last play of the game with like 3 seconds left where they got a safety to make it 24-21. But basically, Georgia kicked a 50-yard field goal to beat them 22-21. And I don't remember the exact sequence, but I do remember that it was pretty well laid out that Georgia got the ball back because Cincinnati could have managed the time better. So yeah, that is a pretty good indicator of how well they can hang on one side. But to put it in perspective as well, Georgia was missing like a dozen players from that game. And I know Cincinnati was missing a safety for sure, who was an NFL draft pick who opted out. But Georgia just they had
Wave the white
a
flag.
slew of guys just opt out of that game that got drafted.
hmm. Well, I guess like my point of bringing that up was to say, like, if you take into, because Cincinnati had a really good year last year, you take that how they played in the bowl game versus a very well respected SEC team, right? And then you the way the season they had this year. I guess my point is that I don't think Cincy's going to go into these games lacking confidence. Like, I don't think they're going to go into these games intimidated, right? And I think that's a very dangerous thing. Like if you're gonna have any shot when you're probably don't have as much talent, that's the other teams you're playing against. You better come in here with high confidence in yourself. And same thing for Alabama, who's going to play them. I mean, Alabama should roll them, but if they come out, and that's the thing too. Like if I'm an Alabama fan, Des, if I'm you, you know, that's what you just don't know, right? You guys have been so inconsistent this year. That's what's been the most, I think, shocking thing about Alabama is that this time of the year, no matter how inconsistent they may have started early in the year, Saban pretty much has those guys pretty much squared away. You guys are sharp. You don't beat yourselves. Routes are crisp. Defensive assignments are crisp. You're playing your best ball. And yes, of course, last Saturday will be indicative of that happening, but it's one game. And it's a game in which you guys are underdogs. I think you really and also Saban, let's be honest, he owns Kirby Smart. He really does. So it's like, I mean, who's to say if you guys aren't quite as crisp? And I know Saban's going to have 4 weeks. I understand the advantages. I'm just saying, like, we just you just don't know what kind of Bama you're going to get this year. It's been like that. So if you don't come out ready to play, you might find yourself in a dogfight.
Could be another struggle win. Who knows? But I mean, so the Auburn to Georgia, at least O-line wise, they did make some changes. They had a right tackle that they had to bench and put him back in. So they did do some shuffling on the O-line, because that O-line from the SEC championship to the week before, with Auburn, was just night and day. It was pretty unreal. To go from giving up, I think it was either 5 or 7 sacks to Auburn, to playing Georgia, who's the number one defense in the country, and you have Bryce Young literally standing in the pocket, looking, reading the defense,
My
pointing to
goodness.
John Mechie to go to the corner and then throwing a touchdown. Like that's crazy.
Well, it,
It's
it
just a
helps.
wild switch.
It helps when the probably the number one D tackle in the country is literally standing up. Like he's so tired that he has zero leg drive, and he essentially off the snap of the ball is just like arms extended, leaning, putting his weight on an offensive lineman. like, uh,
Yes,
uh,
and kind of to transition that to Michigan, you have to run some tempo, especially
yes.
when you have 99 on the field,
Whew.
because he can, if he's not gassed, he can wreck a game plan very
Oh yeah.
quickly. But if you can get him gassed, I mean, there were plenty of times that I saw Bama would catch them on the field and just would run tempo to the point where, I mean, even the next drive, he wouldn't come in because he was
Big fella
tapped.
was
I
sucking
mean,
wind,
he is
baby.
I saw a picture of
He was
him.
sucking wind.
It was a picture of him, a picture of another Georgia player, and then a picture of like a parent or something. Like after the game, they had their helmets off but still shoulder pads on, and it was funny because like the caption on the picture was like, you know, hey everybody, the guy in the middle is like a really big like football, or it started with the parents, like, hey everybody, the guy on the far right, that's a normal human being. They're like, the guy in the middle, that's like a Division 1 football player. They're like, the guy on the left, that's Jordan Davis. Like, and it just, the size difference was I'm like, this guy is
No,
a monster.
he's a mammoth human being, but it was just you don't see that often. I mean, he was just like
Yeah, he just stood up and just kind of put his hands on the O lineman and was
I
just
saw a
taking a
zero leg drive, dude. Like he was literally
no.
just locked. It was just like, bro, please, someone just knock this ball down. Because if you knock the ball down, maybe we can get like a slight break. Because that's really the only chance you have to like stop an up tempo offense. So you got to get an incompletion, right? But he's just like, please. So it's like, you know, so no, Michigan definitely has to go a tempo, and it's going to be interesting because Gaddis likes to do these different packages, right? He likes to bring in Hassan Haskins, certain packages, Blake Corum, and now they've added Donovan Edwards too, and it's really what makes our offense has taken off. It's the versatility, right? As well as at times bringing in JJ, right? So that's going to be the interesting thing. How does Gaddis utilize up tempo while still being creative, which is going to have to also be to score on this Georgia defense, right? That's going to be the interesting thing for me.
I
Yeah,
think
but
it'll be important to not to sub, and it sounds crazy, but to sub JJ the way we like him to sub JJ, which is give him a drive. Like you go 2 drives with Cade, give JJ a full drive. Well, if you don't, you give the defense a chance to sub. So
no, I get it.
I'm just
I'm just,
not.
they don't make me feel. They don't make me feel comfortable. Des, not in a full
Here's the
drive.
thing. Here's the thing. Georgia has about 15 guys on the D line that they could bring in. So they
Yes.
can consistently have fresh guys coming on the field, which
Yeah.
is in Alabama runs tempo just as part of their offense. But they made it a point not to sub, to keep those guys, to try to wear those guys out, because you saw it, right? The result of it is you get a second or third down and you've got one guy who's not even rushing. I mean, that you can't beat that, right? There's if 4 guys don't rush, you've got 5 O linemen that you still have an extra guy to, if in case you bring a blitz or something like that. So to me, and I do understand, that JJ has packages and plays and things like that, but you also too have to take into consideration who you're playing, right? Like when you get to the college football playoff, a lot of it is matchups, and you have to put your team in the best possible position to succeed. And I think, and that's just my take on it. Now, obviously, you don't have to do it every single time where JJ gets a full drive, and maybe you do some subbing, but overall, I think that it's something that you've got to at least be conscious of. Like that needs to be part of, in bowl preparation. Josh Gaddis should be talking to the team about that.